Hi, everybody. This is Angela here with one of my favorite people, one of my favorite thinkers, Yasuhiko Genku Kimura. We've known each other for about a decade, I think, and I consider him one of the most influential people on how I think. Yasuhiko, today we're going to talk about a few very timely topics, including just sort of what's going on in the world. Oh, let me turn that off. Sorry. Artificial intelligence and social media. So let's start out with sort of what's your sense of where humanity is at right now? What sense do you make of our current situation?
So the question just you and I just spoke about before this recording is, how do you make sense out of chaos?
How do you make sense of it?
And maybe it can also lead into a conversation about AI. In the past, we spoke about human intelligence in contradistinction to artificial intelligence. And just to recap, we have computational intelligence, intellective intelligence, and intuitive, imaginative, and holistic intelligence. And at the level of computation, computers and AI are already ahead of humans. And the development of this computational machine intelligence will continue to the degree to which, in which those AI will become a different kind of AI, alien intelligence. This is like so advanced in computational intelligence that it will do things that is unimaginable for humans to do. However, computational intelligence does not have an ability that humans have, which is intellective. So with computational intelligence, you have great knowledge and information processing capabilities, programmable functions. But you see, human intelligence, the intellectual level of human intelligence, sometimes people call reason. You do something unique, which is to understand. And to know and to understand slightly different.
Can you tell what you think the difference is?
Yes. So knowing, you can have let's say informations are piece by piece. When you have a knowledge, you actually put the pieces together. It's a totality.
You kind of read between the lines of
Yes.
what you've been told. Just more than simple memorizing.
Yeah, no, that right? Is actually knowledge. But you see,
Yes.
let's say the difference between knowledge and understanding. Knowledge is totality, and understanding is wholeness. Totality can be divided. Wholeness cannot be divided. There's something beyond the totality. And the human intelligence has this ability to actually comprehend totality, which is, comprehend wholeness, which is beyond totality. And the understanding is a function of coming to know, coming to understand the whole. Whereas knowledge is an accumulative function where you put different systems and different ideas together and create the totality, which can be divided into it. And computers can do the totality, but not wholeness. And the reason being this, human intelligence works from wholeness to totality to parts. Computational intelligence comes from the parts and build the totality.
You know, another, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I don't want to interrupt.
So when we are talking about making sense, we want to understand.
Mm-hmm.
You see, making sense means to understand.
Mm-hmm.
And which is beyond just putting together what we know. There's something more is required for understanding reality. You understand? Yeah. So you see, can I say this? Sense making is in this sense very unique to human intelligence, which requires a function that is beyond computation, accumulation of knowledge. And so today, nobody has whole pieces, entire pieces. What's going on?
Too complex.
Extremely complex. And when you want to make sense out of what is going on, using the approach of a computational approach where you have this piece, you have this piece, you have this piece, this put together. They call integration or synthesis. You may have a greater amount of knowledge, but it does not necessarily lead you to understand. And you can say, in some way, there's a difference between knowledge and wisdom. Wisdom requires that you have the whole picture, which is indivisible, whereas you have a knowledge, which is an integration of pieces together. Now, it is an aggregate versus wholeness. And this wholeness you can never reach from the parts. It's actually more come from the top down, you can say. You have a wholeness, like a human perception, you perceive whole. Then you begin to go this way. And this is maybe one of the greatest contributions of Eastern philosophy, Taoism, Buddhism, and Hinduism. And it is now being, in some sense, confirmed by science that the wholeness is irreducible to its parts. And we grasp whole first and then begin to, make distinctions. And people make a mistake of coming back from the part to the whole. But you see, some level of wholeness cannot be reduced to the parts. And now we can get into a very intellectual conversation here, but just stay with our topic. So in order to make sense out of what is going on, we need to have a holistic grasp of what is going on. And the way we approach sense making, which is a kind of paradigm we have, which is to assemble many parts and build knowledge, is always something's missing.
You know what comes? Oh, sorry,
yes, so there are lots of smart people, there are a lot of knowledgeable people, but nobody has the whole piece. Now, how we can have a whole piece in this complex world? Because nobody knows everything. So, living in this extremely chaotic time, and in which nobody knows everything, how can we make sense out of what's going on?
You know what comes up for me too, just real quick on the knowledge versus understanding part, as a scholar of polymathy, many learnings, I can see, for me, knowledge is like, okay, I can download information from that probably someone else identified before me. It's kind of a memorization or retrieval of what we think we know. That's knowledge. For me, understanding is it's more oriented towards learning, towards continuing to develop my own sense of what I know or understand about a person or a phenomenon or myself or my world. It's a continual process. It's more alive. Understanding is more of a current experience. Knowledge is more stuck. And that's why it's so important to continue learning and to continue exploring and to open yourself up to people who are different, to ideas that you've never explored before, to places you've never been. That's how you understand as you continue to learn. If you know, then you know, and you're done. Understanding and learning is so much more important than knowing. Knowing is what narrow specialists are paid to do. They're paid to be expert. Polymath learners continue to try to understand.
Okay, let me approach this from two different perspectives. So sometimes I talk about, Buckminster Fuller's definition of synergy. Yes, synergy is behaviors of whole systems unpredicted by the behaviors of its subsystems taken separately and observed apart from the whole. So this is, again, it is a mode of thinking we normally, we employ. We see the parts, things coming together, but then when things coming together, the movement of the whole, behavior of the whole is unpredictable. And he has corollary to this. So he says, if you know the behavior of the whole and behaviors of some of its parts, you can predict the behavior of other parts. But now we want to go further. The way human intelligence works with perception and even conception is that we get the whole. Like, Mozart talks about how he composed music. He get the whole piece of music, and then he put it into this note. And we see the notes and then recreate the whole picture that he had in his mind. And this getting the whole piece, and that is how the poets and the great inventors and great mathematicians, they get the whole piece. Then they actually kind of divide into this. But there's always a space in between, which is the intrinsic part of this whole piece, whole piece. And in like a extremely formal mathematical formulations, the great mathematicians, they get the whole piece, the truth. And if you divide it into the formal system, you always encounter an internal contradiction and incompleteness. Yet they know mathematical truth because this truth is derived through their intuition. And that kind of a holistic mode of intelligence, knowing and understanding, is unique to human intelligence. And programming-based computational intelligence will not reach
Mm.
So computer will become, AI will become a specialist, extraordinary in computational intelligence. But humans, we can develop other dimension of intelligence even more. Then we
Intuitive
can work
intelligence.
together with this alien intelligence, AI, in an extremely productive way. And going back to this sense making, this has, it was actually Nietzsche who actually came up with this, I think, for the first time. Up to that moment, purpose of philosophy, people thought it was the pursuit of truth. But he said the major function of philosophy is sense making, not truth seeking. And sense making requires an ongoing process of expanding one's understanding.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so now what is happening today is an unprecedented chaos.
Yeah. Can I
Yes.
can I
Mhm. Yes,
I'd like
please.
to kind of get into the actual, so now we've sort of talked about like what do you do when things are chaotic? How do you make sense of it? And the goal is to not just know, but to understand what's happening, to really open your eyes and see what is happening. And here, can I share what I see, and then you could share what you see broadly on planet Earth right now in 2023. Humanity just went through an historic pandemic, which did a lot of damage. We have collective trauma from that shit. I mean, people were trapped in their homes. I stayed at home for a year. We had to adjust how we work. So many people died. So many people still struggle with health issues as a result of either having COVID or the actual vaccine injury that they received. Like there's just the pandemic was a lot and it impacted our economy. So now we have like really high inflation rates. The cost of living is going up. And, I think inflation is up to like 8 or 9% right now. And the average, rate of return that you can expect from the stock market as an investor over many years is usually about 7%. So now, even if you're investing your money very strategically, you can't keep up with the pace of inflation. And AI is here, it's going to decimate jobs. People are going to lose jobs. And at the end of the day, it may make the ability to relieve ourselves from some grunt work better. But to get from here to there, people are going to lose jobs, and before we figure out what we're doing to have enough money for everybody. And so on top of the pandemic and on top of AI, we also have like just massive global issues, like, weather issues. Call it global warming or just call it weird weather. But there's weird weather, fire. I mean, and we've had those sorts of things for the longest time on Earth, but it just seems to have picked up a lot more. I mean, in California, where I'm from, I can't tell you how frequently there are weird fires, or massive amounts of rain and flooding. That's what's happening. So people are also living their lives online more and more. And so that human connection, that sense of community in person has sort of dwindled. We're just getting hit from all sides, financially, health wise, socially. And then we all live in these echo chambers on social media. And then when you turn to media, a lot of what you hear is just depressing and difficult and crisis. We just have one crisis. It's a meta crisis. That's what it's being called now. It's just a crisis of many crises underneath it. And I can't recall a time in my nearly 42 years of being alive where life has been this hard for so many people. I can't recall a time. It's a very difficult time to be alive right now. There's also good things too. It's not all tragedy, but the sense I make right now is that it's a very, very difficult time for us.
You see, well, in your own lifetime, this is the greatest crisis. But we want to look at this a little in a larger perspective. Because your life includes your parents' life.
Mm-hmm.
And your parents' life actually include your grandparents' life.
Mm-hmm.
And so on and so forth. And there are some generational influences coming.
Yes.
And so human being is an organism.
Mm-hmm.
And organism has certain limitation as to how much stress it can take. And when you encounter the amount of stress that is beyond its own capacity, in reaction to it, we become neurotic. What is called neurosis is in a way normal reaction to the stress, which is beyond its own capacity to actually deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And going back long before you were born or I was born, in 20th century, and now in look at 120 years of this period. We had First World War I and Second World War I, Second World War, World War I, World War II, and in between there was an influenza pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
real one, and there was a Great Depression.
Stock market crash.
So our near ancestors, they have gone through a tremendous amount of stress. And by the time the World War II ended, collectively, humanity was suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah.
You see, they are all to a degree a little neurotic and going through the stress disorder collectively.
Mm-hmm.
So when you are in that state, two things happen. The first thing is people become a little bit neurotic. You know, they're mentally a little bit neurotic.
Mm-hmm.
Not because you are born neurotic, but because of the life which brings stress way beyond their capability to handle. Secondly, when you are in that state, you seek security. So what happens is society, people's psychology was moving more and more security and comfort.
Mm. Yeah.
And not in the direction of freedom, but more in the direction of security and comfort.
Yeah. So true.
And it's becoming a vicious circle. So then when there's an extra stress, they become more neurotic and they seek more security. So post World War II, human mentality become increasingly more conformist.
Mm.
And people become less and less risk-taking. You see, courage. Humans used to be has a greater courage than we today have. And opposite of courage is, of course, cowardice, but it actually shows up as a conformity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So there will be hive mind, herd mentality in really magnified form. So when you go to academia, you know, they are smart people, they have a lot of knowledge, but it is actually a bastion of hive mind and herd mentality.
Absolutely.
Independent, original thinkers cannot survive in academia or intellectual community. They don't like you if they don't agree with you. I mean, you don't
might get
agree with
canceled.
them. Yes, you be canceled. You know, and the original thinkers, which means to be an original thinker requires an intellectual courage.
Absolutely.
And they will be totally ostracized.
Yeah.
Look at Jordan Peterson. I don't know. I would know. He is not extremely, but to a degree he has great intellectual courage.
Yeah.
And go against
Does.
yeah, he does.
Whether or not you agree with him, you
Exactly.
could
That's what I was.
acknowledge.
Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So he may not be an original thinker at the level of Nietzsche, but definitely he is original in the sense that he thinks for himself. And now he got ostracized from that. And he's not the only one. And he's the most well-known case, but there are many others.
Many.
There are philosophy professors who resigned because he couldn't function in the university anymore.
Don't you find this scary that okay, let's make some sense out of this. Okay. We live in a very complex time, unprecedented times. We need as many ideas for how to deal with this complexity as humanly possible. At the same time, we live in an echo chamber, hegemony, like the majority is going to have the narrative, and if you disagree with it, you get canceled, which I consider a kind of murder, because nowadays we're networked on social media and traditional media. We're a small world now. Everybody knows what's going on if they want, more or less, not with everything, but we hear about what's going on. And we need as many ideas as possible to come to the surface to deal with the complexity of our time. At the same time, we're squashing people and silencing them and murdering them on Twitter.
So you see this,
exactly,
this conformity, and so you have one hive here, another hive here, and then in order to have a social status and a job security, you become conformist.
Do what you're told. You'll be safe.
Yes.
Get in line. Do what you're told. Get in your box.
Yes, and then people, intellectuals, they are not fulfilling their function because they are not providing the ideas that contribute to general public anymore. And they are unable to make sense out of what is going on. Because the paradigm to which they subscribe is inadequate. The mode of thinking and the mode of consciousness that they have is inadequate and insufficient, in many ways moribund, to deal with what is happening today. And so you see some, reasonably smart people like Sam Harris going nuts, because his mode of thinking is not going to be able to help him make sense out of this life anymore.
And can we touch just briefly too on, a lot of us look to government and the major corporations to, and to swoop in and save us, do something, fix it.
Yes.
But in my opinion, and I'm curious to hear your perspective, of course, but in my opinion, governments are failing. I spent my whole adult life working for the federal government, basically. I saw it from the inside. And I've seen it from the underbelly. I've studied the courts and the prisons. And although our government does do some good work, we have roads and we have water and, we have functions we need. I don't think I think government is broken enough as a general rule. It's not adaptable. It's not quick. It's not agile. It's very bureaucratic and slow to change. And we live in a fast-paced world with so much going on. And our bumbling Goliath of a government is not well equipped to deal with the crises, the many crises that we're in. And I don't know how that positions us as a species to get through this if we can't rely on the entity we should be able to rely on to resolve our issues.
When you study the last 6,000 years of human history, you will know that the greatest enemy of the peoples is their own government. Okay.
Right there.
Yes.
Right there.
And the founding fathers of this country
Tried to limit government.
knew it.
They knew
So
it.
they were tasked with an almost impossible job. They knew the government is the enemy, yet they needed to create a government which will be least harmful to humans, the people. And as soon as they established the government, it has become the government it had always been, the enemy of people. And when you read Thomas Jefferson's letters to John Adams, he says, maybe 5 or 6 years before they died, that he said to John Adams, "We have failed."
Yeah, and things were better back then.
Thomas Jefferson, in his own lifetime, came to realize that that they have failed. They had a great opportunity and they failed. So, ever since, the U.S. government has been on a downward trend. So now it has come to the bottom of it, and so in a way, people, and now going back to the post-World War II, 1945. So this people suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder collectively, and a little bit neurotic, and seeking security, and society becoming more and more secular. They turned their government into God, and they expected the government to take care of them. Now that delusion is being broken completely, and the government became too big.
It's too big and it's too broken to even fix itself.
Yeah, no. So
and it's too comfortable in its own rut, its own self-serving rut to change to serve its constituents.
Yeah. So whatever happens, I think some system that are so corrupt need to collapse.
Yeah.
And it is actually better. It is happening, and we should let it go.
Let it go. So we can get something that works better for us. The old systems are failing. That's what I see. Government isn't, it's very wasteful and inefficient too. And in the face of economic difficulties, we need systems in place that are efficient and smart and adaptable and agile. And that is exactly what government is not.
You see, organizations are not organisms.
Right.
Organizations are totality, as opposed to organism, that's a wholeness. And organisms have their own way of regeneration. So you are born, you die, but in the process, you have a new generation coming and die. There's an ongoing regeneration. The organizations, because it is a totality, instead of regenerating, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger to sustain itself, and eventually it actually corrupts. So you see, the closer the organizations become organisms, the better. So Thomas Jefferson had an idea that every new generation need to have its own constitutional convention and renew the constitution every 25 years. And when organization become too big, it has become almost impossible. But in the beginning, every new president, all the government employees renewed themselves. So one president ends, everybody leaves the government, and new president comes, everybody new come in. There would be no deep state anymore, But now it's too big, and jobs are too specialized. It is, and they don't pay as well as private sectors. So what happens? Private sector attract really bright people, and people who can't really survive in the private sector go into the government. I'm not putting them down.
I agree.
And of course, and so what happens is, the organization get bigger and bigger, up to the point of hypertrophy and collapse. So we need to create a social structure, governance structure that is generationally renewable, so that in a constant basis it's renewed. For example, definitely there need a term limit to the politicians. At least president, they have only 2 terms. There are people in Congress there in the 70s and 80s. They have been Congress men and women all their lives. It does not make any sense whatsoever. There's no renewal there.
Yeah, that's the whole point of politics and government are different. I'd like to take a moment to explain, having worked in at the Executive Office of the President, the Center for Leadership Development, some of really important parts of our federal government. Politics are those temporary people who come in, they're supposed to be temporary. They're supposed to come and go. That's the whole point. Although, as you pointed out, frequently they spend their whole lives in the political machine. Government are those lackeys in my world that I came from, are mediocre people who want to do the minimum amount of work possible for the maximum.
Can you hear the my gardening outside?
I can't. I was wondering.
Okay, that's good. Okay,
because I'm outside.
In your okay, that's good.
No, we're good. I think.
Huge noise. Anyway,
but government is the machine that keeps working no matter who's elected. Political appointees have to be elected. So that's basically
two sides
of the same coin.
Politics is a larger concept within which government become a kind of a one aspect. You see, based on Aristotle and many philosophers, you see, ethics is the science for achieving individual happiness, and politics is a science, the art and science for achieving collective happiness. So politics is there so that the people who are constituting the society be individually and collectively happy. Happiness, whatever the happiness that they define for themselves. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And government is created to facilitate the collective happiness and prosperity of society as a part of this politics. And when there is a community, nobody agrees with anybody else. So, there will be no perfect polity, no perfect government. So it doesn't, but it needs to be ongoingly, adjusted to the movement of time in history. But you see, what is important is that government need to be renewable, regeneratable. And when it becomes semi-permanent organization, it becomes a problem. Not because humans are all bad, simply because that is the nature of organization. So whatever the new system we can come up with, we need to have a government that is renewable We need to have a constitution that needs to be revised on an ongoing basis.
We need to adapt.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
see, the law of the universe is eternal, it is a real law, but the human law need to be recreated on an ongoing basis. Even if it is the same one from one generation to the other, the people who are, they need to really understand, not just to follow.
Mm.
You see, so the founding fathers understood the Constitution, why they're putting this together. It was not perfect, but they understood the basic principles behind the Constitution. And then next generation after, and so on and so forth, ensuing generations begin to lose the original understanding behind the original principle behind the Constitution. It became a rule instead of principle. That's when, you know, society started to disintegrate. Constitution is essential, but you know, when people don't understand the Constitution, they don't understand the principle that is Constitution, and it became a rule to follow. Constitution loses meaning, and society starts to disintegrate. That's what happened today. When you look at the amendment to the Bill of Rights, there are significant contradictions existing among them. And so anyway.
One thing I'd like to add too, as someone who worked in government for federal government for 15 years, I also worked for the state of California in the governor's office and at the University of California, Los Angeles. So I have state experience and federal experience. I've been in it and I've studied it as an intellectual and as Dr. Angela, right? I can tell you with great certainty that government intends to do well. It intends to do well. But what ends up happening in practice is, you know, it has so many rules, so much bureaucracy, so many underachievers who go to government because they want job security and, you know, they want to be able to not get fired even if they underperform. They want to be able to sleep at work and have sex with their colleagues and do very unprofessional things and still not get fired. Whereas in private industry, they might. But the bottom line I'm trying to convey is government, instead of existing to serve its constituents, its clients, its customers, which is the whole purpose it exists to begin with. The original intention was to help the people. Government becomes an entity which exists, especially the more it grows, it exists to serve itself. It exists to serve the people who work there. Job security, salaries, a culture of ease and laziness. And so the constituents that pay money for government services are not getting their money's worth. Government gets so big, it stops existing for its original purpose. And its new purpose is to serve the people who work there first and foremost.
But that is not just that is not just the government, any institutions. You see, people come together to create an organization to satisfy some function, to fulfill some purpose. And what happens? Then the survival of the organization becomes number one purpose. And original purpose for which the organization is created becomes secondary.
Exactly.
And actually, sometimes it becomes a hindrance. So there's a cancer. Many people suffer from cancer. So they put money together to create a National Institute for Cancer Research. What happens? If they found the cure for cancer,
we'd never know about it.
There's no more the people who are working there.
They'd lose their careers.
They lose job in the organization. So in order for the organization to exist, there needs to be a program for which it is supposed to be a solution. But then they begin to coexist. So long as problem is there, the solution will be there. And the solution becomes a problem eventually. So, that's how it works. So we need to be disciplined enough to resolve the organization on an ongoing basis.
Yeah.
The organization needs to be closer to the organism so that it, as it was born, so will it die, and on an ongoing basis.
And
The moment you want to create an immortal organization, that's when things goes bad. How can we do that? It is extremely difficult. You see, so each organization needs to actually make it a point. But you see, the program for which the organization is created may still be there.
And it may be evolving too.
Evolving too. So, we need to have that kind of a mentality. Now, going back to the original sense making, I think is a very important question. Many people ask me this question. So there are some very smart people, very smart, knowledgeable people. They have some theories and frameworks to try to make sense out of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But for general public, different sense making.
Okay, we're having some internet issues, Yasuhiko. I don't know if you can.
They base.
Okay, we're having some problems with the recording here. I apologize, everybody watching this. I was hoping to.
Okay.
Okay, are we back?
Yes.
Okay.
So
Wait, wait. I gotta press record. Oh, it's recording. Never mind. Okay,
yeah.
sorry, everybody. Technical
Okay.
difficulties.
So this theory-based, intellectual framework-based, the paradigm-based way of sense-making is the mode of sense-making that humans have developed, and especially after the age of enlightenment and age of reason, that served well at the same time when there's something new is happening and something unprecedented is happening, something unknown is taking place. Inadequate, because all knowledge is based on the past.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you and I and human intelligence as such is holistically constructed. The holistic intelligence is actually natural for humans. And holistic intelligence means you not only use computational intelligence, logic, interactional or interactive intelligence, which is a conceptually based mode of understanding. You also have intuition and imagination and even spiritual intelligence, where you actually can be, the knower is the known is the knowing, that state of consciousness. Now, without being enlightened in that sense, everybody has a holistic mode of perceiving life. You see, this is called ecological psychology, that we perceive the ecology first. We perceive wholeness first. And if you are kind of open to this intuitive faculty of your own self, and you want to actually dance with reality, and in terms of intellection, in terms of knowledge, you are uncertain. And intellectual uncertainty and psychological insecurity come together at the same time. And animals in jungle, when they face danger, they become extremely acute. And they behave in the most appropriate way. That is animalistic sense making. And humans have expanded mode of sense making faculty, where so intellectually there is always an element of uncertainty. And the psychologically there's an element of insecurity. But if you let this holistic intelligence be alive, you will know at every moment, and you will know how to approach this. And when difference between animals and humans is that you have actually a great deal of information. So you let the information be. So it is a part of the picture, ecology. It is an idea sphere, as well as ecosphere, the physiosphere, biosphere, social sphere. There's an idea sphere. They're all there, and you are responding to this. You may make mistakes, but through this, you begin to learn the holistic mode of sense making beyond intellective mode of sense making. And in this time in human history, when a major systemic change is taking place, that nobody ever faced this in their own lifetimes before, knowledge-based sense-making is insufficient, because we will never have enough amount of knowledge. We can have knowledge about now, maybe 50 years from now. Right now, we don't have enough knowledge about now to be able to construct a sense-making paradigm with which to know what's going on. However, we have this intuitive, the holistic mode of knowing, which gives us an information, critical information, critical intelligence, with which to live and survive. And so what we need is an ability to survive and thrive in uncertainty and in insecurity, and be alive with the one's holistic intelligence.
Yes.
Which is unavailable and which is not possible for computational machine intelligence, no matter how intelligent it is.
Yeah, we need to become more holistic. Absolutely. And, I'd like to shift gears a little bit now as we kind of begin to wrap up our conversation I'd like to move on to social media a little bit, because here's the sense I make of basically the bottom line is it's overwhelming times. It's difficult times. It's hard to be human right now. There's a lot of things that aren't working very well, and we don't have the new systems in place yet. And this is also in the context of, in the 90s, most people got access to the internet. You could contact anybody. You could find out almost anything on the internet. It made our earth like a brain. It like connected the neurons. We now know people and have whole friendships and relationships with people we've never even met in the flesh. Like, we are a networked globe because of the internet. And social media took this to the next level. Like the internet linked us because you could email and you could video chat, and back in the early days. But social media, especially modern versions of social media, totally connect us with people we don't know, and has the potential to connect us to ideas we've never thought before, or to generate new possibilities. But instead of being used productively to actually help us learn about people we didn't know about before in more compassionate, empathetic, learning sorts of ways, instead we abuse the internet and we abuse social media by entering echo chambers to validate what we think we know already. And I would like to challenge anybody watching this to change their orientation on social media, to look for opportunities to be exposed to ideas, to people, to concepts, to ways of living and ways of thinking that aren't yours, that are new to you. In fact, I'm going to plug a little bit for a second. I love the YouTube. My personal favorite YouTube channel is called The Soft White Underbelly. And why I love The Soft White Underbelly is because there's a filmmaker who interviews people who are homeless, people who used to be in prison, people who society rejects, prostitutes, pimps, drug addicts, people that I don't know in my real life. And that one YouTube channel has changed my life drastically, because I've gotten to see the stories of people who are so different than me. And I've begun to see, well, if I was born into a situation like them, or if I had their experiences, I might have ended up on the same exact path they did. It's created a more awareness. I can understand the human experience.
You see, okay, you see, you and I use social media basically that way. Okay.
Learn.
Yeah. So, we have learned to use social media that way. And, for the general public, I have one recommendation, which is to completely stop watching mainstream media. No ABC, no CBS, no NBC, no Fox News, no CNN, no any of those TV news. Completely stop. And then
I have.
Yeah, I don't. And
I don't watch it.
I haven't watched TV like in the last 20 some years. But anyway, then use social media for getting information. Then do you know what? Because when you watch CNN or somebody's putting news together, so you just listen to them. You become passive receiver. With social media, there's so many people are putting news that you have to begin to really think, and then somehow start to make sense out of this. You get exposed to the wholeness first, within which there are seeming contradictions. So I think the first step for anybody can do is stop watching TV news completely.
Depressing too.
Which means TV news. Not only that, mainstream news that are repeated on the social media.
It's all a propaganda machine, just by the way.
Exactly. So then begin
to make money.
Yeah. So you become not a passive receiver of information.
Yeah.
But active seeker of information.
Yes.
If people can shift that way, things will start to change. Then what happens? Social media will evolve.
From being, sorry, I just want to say, you got to shift from being told and programmed to learning and self-programming.
Exactly. So one thing you can do, it's very difficult for people to stop something that they have been doing, but if they stop watching TV news completely, doesn't matter if there's a CNN or Fox, all of them, they're all propaganda machines.
Can I share with you real quick? I have a recommendation. My favorite, I've read many books in my life, but the one nearest and dearest to my heart, and I think is more relevant today than ever. It's called, and it sounds ridiculous from the title, Jerry Mander wrote it. His name's Jerry Mander. I think he's still alive somewhere in California, an old guy, but it's called 4 Arguments for the Elimination of Television. And mind you, I don't have TVs in my house. I almost never watch TV. 4 arguments for the elimination of television. I give gerrymander. He's never met me and has no idea I exist. Reading that book taught me what actual thinking looks like.
Okay.
And
I should read that book too.
I love it. And it just shows you how when you watch TV, you are just, it's letting your mind be programmed.
Absolutely.
Information that may be traumatizing, may be untrue, maybe to bad for your mental health. Like it's just, it's not a good idea.
Exactly. Yeah. So and then if they stop watching TV news, they have extra time, and then they can use Twitter or whatever. And then you want to go into, you want to actively seek information, and then they start to make sense for yourself.
Understand the human experience from other people's experiences.
Yeah, it's very important. Yes.
I'm sorry. I'm like this particular means so much to me because I'm active on social media. And really what I'm active on social media about is encouraging people to think for themselves, to make their own lives, to stop being so programmable. And what I see happening, which I find so sad, is that people enter social media mostly to go into their echo chambers of, yeah, I'm right, and what I know and what I think is correct, and I'm going to find people who agree with me and people who are like me and people who are going to support me and what I think, rather than using social media for how can I learn and grow and explore. And
you see, you can tell people to think for themselves, but they don't know what it means to think for themselves. So it is like only those people who know how to think will say yeah, and then they can do it. So, but they can't stop watching mainstream media.
Our attention
completely. Just stop watching. So they get 0 viewers.
Yeah, I know. And you know what? That is our attention, our mind space, the real estate of our interiority is one of the most valuable things we have nowadays. And we give it away. We just give it away so blindly and so frequently. And the other thing I want to point out, an additional thing that really disappoints me about humans right now as a general rule, is that when we're online and social media and we have these opportunities to learn from people with different perspectives and maybe upgrade our own perspective, instead of doing that, instead of actually learning from real people in the world who are different than us, or even if we don't agree with them, understanding their perspectives, instead of being that productive, humane, intelligent kind of approach to the internet and social media, instead what we tend to do is dehumanize and disrespect and cancel people who disagree with us or the majority. And to even speak against what the majority story is scary and controversial. And that is not the world we should live in. Ideas and information deserves to be free. It deserves to be out there. And may the best ideas win. Blind allegiance to political religion.
Angela, if people can do what they should do, then there will be no concept of should to begin with.
Yeah.
And there are many things that people should or shouldn't, but as humans are, they wouldn't be doing what they should be doing. That's how humans are constructed. So where to begin? Of course, we begin from ourselves, number one. We start to think, you are a thinker, and I have been trying to be a thinker. And then just and to think, and then your immediate your daughter and people around you start. But there are things, if you want to speak to the general public, you want to suggest things they understand and they actually can do. Stop watching news. They can do. And
join a Facebook group. Join a Facebook group of someone that's totally unlike you. Learn from them.
Yeah.
Watch the Soft White Underbelly on YouTube. Get to know someone who's having a different experience than you.
Yeah. So, suppose if you just stop watching major news, no major, those mainstream news for 1 month,
A cleanse.
you begin to become, you need to know. You actually need to know what is going on, really. So then you become more active seeker, and that is important. I think people need to become active, not passive. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so that people can do. And but you see,
that right there is the difference between being programmed and self-programming.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Instead of just inheriting whatever comes your way,
yeah,
you seek out.
Mm-hmm.
You become.
But I don't know. People have become so weak.
Yeah.
So weak. It is like
peer pressure.
Speaking to a dead person to breathe. Humans have become really zombified.
Mentally lazy. They just want to know what they know.
People used to be lazy. It is beyond lazy. Immobile.
Mm. Yeah,
and what is happening? There's a bifurcation. The strong people are becoming stronger. Smarter ones are becoming smarter. The people who have been asleep are becoming deeper and deeper into sleep.
Yeah.
And so let's see what happens. On the long term, we'll be fine. But the long term can be 100 years or 25 years. But it is not like in next few years. It will take some time. And I at my age may never see the renewal of humanity in my lifetime.
You know what? Yasuhiko, you said something in one of your emails recently, and it really struck me. And I wanted to talk with you about it. You said something about that you were going to shelter. You're going to shelter you used the word shelter. And it struck me like we do live in a time that's become so chaotic. I feel also I need to go into shelter. I need to go underground or something. I need to go into safety and security because it is so unpredictable what is happening with our economy, with our weather systems, with health issues, with failing governments, with post-pandemic PTSD, with social media pressure, and and then on top of everything, I don't know if other people feel this way, but I think at least for me, there's so much coming at me. There's so much information coming at me with text messages and emails, social media alerts, and then my own mail, and I feel as if I cannot keep up with it all. I'm overwhelmed.
You see, if you remember, I combined that with another statement. So that comes from Martin Heidegger. But before I said that, I used a quote from Nietzsche. The strong always need to be defended against the weak. The strong stands alone. The weak is always in a herd. So there are the weak outnumbers the strong, and therefore strong always need to be defended. So that's number one. The strong need to come together, and that is gathering. And Martin Heidegger in a book called Logos says, it is proper to every gathering that the gatherers assemble to coordinate the efforts to the sheltering. Only when they have gathered together with that end in view do they begin to gather. So when you put those things together, you see the strong, independent tend to be independent, and strong and alone.
Hard to organize.
They can will stand alone, but eventually the weak will overwhelm you with numbers. the strong people, independent people, free thinkers, they need to gather.
We need to unite.
They need to gather and create a sheltering, the shield against the weak.
Yeah, I had started a group called Free Thinkers United. Remember? I tried to start something, and I think I didn't do it in the right platform, but we need free thinkers to come together and save our world. We need polymathic thinkers, systems thinkers, people who aren't afraid to say what they see and the truth of what's not working. The only way you can possibly hope to fix the problems that are rampant in our world is to truly see and acknowledge that it's broken.
Yes. And
the people in power don't want to do that because it makes them look bad.
Yeah, and this I read this a long time ago, so before I wrote the essay called Alignment Beyond Agreement. And one of the fundamental principles for this gathering and sheltering is alignment in intention. You see, we gather on the basis of agreement. They basically conform to a particular mode of thought and conform this. This weak come together.
Very simple.
And strong, they think independently. And so, which means they may disagree.
It's harder to deal with disagreement.
And so, yes,
but it's
so
better.
They need to have the different way of gathering together, and that is an alignment in intention. And alignment in vision, alignment in intention. And we need to allow disagreement.
Yes.
Look, and American Revolution was in many ways a model, one of which is this alignment beyond agreement. You see, when you read the founding fathers, they disagreed rigorously and vigorously, but they aligned. Actually, I came up with this concept of alignment beyond agreement by reading founding fathers' disagreement. Debate, actually.
Yeah, it was okay to debate. It was okay to disagree.
There are books that put together, I've put together how it's fun to read. This brilliant mind, this disagreeing. Oh, the most famous one is, of course, Federalist versus anti-Federalist. But, there are many others. And, it is very interesting to see. So we need the strong people, free thinkers, independent thinkers, strong in spirit, need to gather in creating sheltering.
Yeah, exactly.
In one of the basic principles is alignment in intention. Now I must go.
Okay.
So yeah. But anyway, this was.
I'll wrap
we
it
will
up.
continue this conversation. Yes.
Yeah, I've loved this conversation. Thank you so much, Yasuhiko. Yes. Instead of demonizing and canceling people who disagree, how about we embrace diversity of thought and make the world a better place?
Absolutely. Yeah. But
all right, everybody.
In order for the disagreement or agreement to take place, you must understand each other's point of view.
Yes, you must listen and learn.
You see, when people come together and agree or disagree, first, they need to understand the subject upon which they are agreeing or disagreeing. And they need to understand each other's perspective.
Yes.
And right now, there isn't real agreement or disagreement. They are just spewing.
Rejection.
Yeah, that's it. There's no real understanding, and there's no agreement or disagreement.
People go, la, 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 I'm going to think what I think. They don't actually learn from each other. And we
exactly. Yeah, great.
All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, Yasuhiko.